Hello, I'm Horceror. I want to find out what makes every single killer tick. There's one big glaring issue with that though. I play the Nemesis, essentially only the Nemesis. I physically cannot get thousands of hours of experience on every single character. So, I'm going to be interviewing people that do have those thousands of hours. One for every single killer. Welcome to Stars of the Fog. Alright, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Stars of the Fog. Today's killer is Adriana Imai, the Skull Merchant, a killer that has had numerous controversies, one based on traps, beam placement, and plenty of other techniques that are a little bit more than meets the eye. My guest today is one of course, one of the most avid Skull Merchant defenders, and realistically, if you think of Skull Merchant, you think of them. So, I'm just going to let them introduce themselves. So my esteemed PixelBush, who are you? What are you known for? And what got you into the Skull Merchant?
Hello everyone, as wonderful horse introduced me, I am PixelBush. I am a full-time Dead by Daylight YouTuber. I've been doing this for almost 5 years now. I kind of cut my teeth making lore videos, and I still make those. Like, it's kind of the other thing people seem to know me for. But I didn't pick Merchant up immediately. I didn't play her during the 3-gen era, from like the March when she released to the October of that year. October she got reworked. I didn't pick her up until October, but I was always a big fan of the character. Like I loved her lore. I loved the kind of the area of horror that she alluded to. And then when she got reworked, I was like, okay, I can work with this. And then I workshopped her in some custom matches, and I was like, okay, this killer has more depth than I thought. And one thing led to another, and now here I am.
And that's how you got into the Skull Merchant specifically, but what was the way that you got into Dead by Daylight itself as a game? Like, when did you start playing?
I started playing about the release of The Pig, because I am a lifelong Saw fan. I watched those movies far younger than I should have done. And there was a YouTuber I used to watch called Bricky, and he had his like DVD case file series. He was a fairly regular DVD player at the time. I was aware of the game for quite some time, but then when Pig came out, I was like, okay, they're bringing Saw into this game. I need to see what they've got going on. And I kind of had an on and off relationship with the game. Like, I'd play for a few months, I'd stop again, wait for like 6-8 months, and then come back and play a little bit. But it was only about Silent Hill's release that I kind of jumped into the game with both feet and started making content about it not long after. My first video was on the Blight's lore, because Blight had just come out when I thought, like, there's not really anyone making videos about Dead by Daylight's lore and story, which is kind of weird given how much of it there is. So I thought I should start making those videos, and then one thing to another, and here I am.
It's actually fun, because one of my favorite episodes I've done so far has been the Blight with Lilith Omen, of course, and he was actually giving me like his theories on the Blight and telling me all about it, and I would say that I know a lot about Talbot now because of that.
Yeah, it's really fantastic when you have someone like Lilith who engages completely with the character in front of them, not just the gameplay aspect, because as I'm sure you've interviewed so many people on this series, you're going to interview quite a few more, but I should imagine, at least in quite a few cases, they really care about not just the power, but the character. That's what sets apart, like, just someone who enjoys playing them, someone who can truly appreciate them. So seeing someone like Lilith be able to jump in, but with both feet into a character like that, it always makes me very happy.
Yeah, it is very nice, and people really appreciate their character for what they are, like every aspect of them, and like there's that initial draw, and then like it gets deeper the more they go into it. But like with Skull Merchant, I know you did mention very briefly you like the aspects of horror she came from, but what was like her initial appeal of the character and the kit and all of that? You didn't really like the 3-genning, of course.
No, I didn't.
And about how long did it take you to really like get the killer? Like, what was the moment where you're like, okay, wow, I think I know what I'm doing now?
Well, the thing that the first caught my interest, because I was making a video, as you do on the new PTB rework,
as you do,
to the killer. And because I'd cared quite a bit about the killer before I'd even pitched my own rework suggestion for her, because I was like, this character, the vibes appeal, but it doesn't quite work. A 3-gen like adjacent kit just didn't really, scratch the itch, if you will. So I thought I'll make a video, especially given I'd not long made my video concepting my own rework for her. I'll make a video on the PTB and just kind of give it a chance, see how it plays. And there are a couple of moments on that PTB where I was like, maybe this killer's got something. There's a kind of infamous in my community now of me instant 2-tapping an Anon mode near on the PTB, like taking them from 2 lock-on stacks to injured to downed in less than 2 seconds. And it was only once I put that video out that one of my viewers informed me that Anon mode near was Aaron, which It kind of puts his uncomplimentary thoughts about the killer in a different light, perhaps. But as soon as I got that 2-tap, I was like, okay, if we can make this somewhat consistent, we might have something here. And then they brought her from PTB to live with a couple of new mechanics. They let you kind of rotate the drone, switch the drone's rotation direction yourself. So you could have way more control of where beams are facing at any given time. And they also added laser tagging, which was the feature where when you deploy a drone, the beam shoots exactly the direction you're facing when you press the button, meaning you have absolute pinpoint precision aim with your drone beam. Those two features together, that gave you enough beam control that being able to not just stack survivors because they made a mistake, but stack survivors because you actively pushed the beam into them, like manipulated it yourself. As soon as I realized the consequences of that, and then I ran some customs with some friends, labbing maps to be like, okay, can the drone see through this section of stairwell? Can it see through this metal gantry? Can it see through this like netting wall or something, or this mesh like ramp? Like what happens if I place it on elevation? The more I tested, the more I labbed with the killer, the more I realized this killer has a lot more depth than anyone is giving her credit for. And that I had that feeling. I distinctly remember about a week or so after she came to live servers, like, oh no, this is going to be a problem, isn't it? Like this is not just like, oh, this is a cool killer. This is going to be an obsession. And lo and behold, it was. And I knew it was happening, which made it all the more like, I know I can't stop it now. The ball has already started to roll.
Okay, so laser tagging, I do want to bring that up a little bit just because that is like
Of course.
A lot of people don't have text on their killers because that is, that's just how Dead by Daylight works. Like a lot of them is just like, okay, well, maybe I move it a little bit, like I move the hitbox a little, but like laser tagging, that's interesting. And like there's always interesting things you can do on killers, and this is one of them. So like as far as techs go for the Skull Merchant, like what would you say little Tommy is playing the Skull Merchant for the first time and he wants to learn like all the flashy cool stuff you can do. Like what type of stuff are you like showing this guy to show off specifically? Like what is the cool stuff that Skull Merchant can do?
I'd say the bread and butter are basically the two features that got brought in from the PTB to live, which are rotation direction switching to keep the beam on top of the survivor as often as you can to try to give them multiple lock-on stacks out of a single drone, and laser tagging. Like those are the two ways that you have to semi-consistently confirm lock-on stacks. Because one thing's worth noting is that a survivor is immune to being scanned for 2.5 seconds after they are scanned for the first time. They're immune for 2.5 seconds after. When you're a survivor, you can see this because you'll get scanned by a yellow beam, you'll get a lock-on stack, and then the drone beam will be white, which will show to the survivor that you're immune to being scanned. The killer can't see that. So if you have that 2.5 second timer in your head, or 2.25 for using the add-on, which you should because the add-on is amazing, if you can rotate the beam in such a way that it's back on top of the survivor as that 2.5 second or 2.25 second timer expires, like if you can get the interval down of going, right, 1.5 seconds away, 1.5 seconds back, if you can get that timing down, you can get 2 lock-on stacks on a survivor in a situation where normally you might only get 1. Double stacking is such an effective way of like, if you're just waiting for the drones to tag survivors by themselves, you're going to be waiting forever because there's only one beam and it's very visible and it's very avoidable. But if you're controlling it, you can catch a survivor off guard. And that's how you do well with this killer. You're reliant in many ways on catching the survivors doing something they're not going to expect. So definitely when you're like learning to rotate your drones like that, keep that 2.5 second timer in your head, get it down.
Like it's pretty obvious advice, but giving a survivor 2 stacks is 2 times better than giving them 1 stack.
Absolutely. Like it means that say if someone is already got 1 lock-on stack, it guarantees you'll get an injury from them if you can get 2. Or it means you can injure a survivor and then rotate the drone back into them to give them an immediate hinder. 2 stacks is better than 1 in all situations. And if you rotate the drone into them, you'll also get a 5% haste for a few seconds. So that's nice.
And since it's kind of in the same vein of things with like teaching new players on what they should do, like what is some of the, I know you obviously have a guide.
Yeah, it's quite a lot there.
Full guide to playing the Skull Merchant. For a general piece of advice, like just starting out on the Skull Merchant, like how would you teach people like anything like drone placement or like what you should learn first or what you like look into? Like what is the absolute bare bones where you should start with this killer?
I think the first thing I see people not doing enough is using the radar. The radar is your most important tool because it's like, it means you can have mid-chase tracking. It means you can manipulate your drones whenever you need to. It makes it obvious whether or not a drone has been disabled enabled, it is a key tool in your arsenal. And when people watching you play Skull Merchant, they're like, you're holding the radar out basically all the time, and people don't know why I'm doing it. It can give you little bits of information that are critical. But honestly, the core gameplay loop is I like to set up a couple of drones ahead of time, put them in high traffic areas. So places survivors will have to go in the normal process of playing the game. For example, if you're on a map with a strong main building like Disturbed Ward, you put those drones in the areas that survivors will either enter the building or leave it, usually enter. Like one at the front door, one at the back, the reception door, and one at the back door. Those drones will cover common looping points on the map, and those drones are now locking that building down. So as a survivor gets to the tile, you can pull out your radar, spin the beam into them, and get a lock-on stack. They can't stay there or else they're liable to get more. It forces them to move somewhere less safe. So a couple of drones in the environment, I'll usually like to have 2 or 3, and then you keep 2 or 3 on your person, so that you can use them to put them up in a tile when you get to one to try and laser tag somebody, or like rotate the beam into them if they can't leave the tile. So it's kind of like it's a hybrid trap killer play style alongside like more of like a zoning in chase sort of gameplay. You can't really just play with one, you have to do both. But yeah, that is ultimately your core gameplay loop. It is set up in high traffic areas, confirm injuries with drones set up at close proximity. So like when you're in chase with somebody trying to laser tag them or trying to rotate it into them in the tile. And then once they got the claw trap on, just lock on stacks onto them by aiming if necessary, because that is the hinder is the only thing you have left now. Your power is great, it's pretty good at getting the first health state. You're not like Legion quick or Plague quick, but you're decently quick. But once they are already claw trapped, you have to make the choice of like, do I drop this chase and let them be broken for almost a minute, maybe come back to them later? Or do I want to commit to this and think that I can get like, if I can like basically hinder them to death using the 8% hinder? None of these choices are easy because the killer's not very good. At the end of the day, even if you make the right choice, it might not feel like the right choice because it's taking so long, but your alternative as well. So kind of, it's an unfortunate consequence of this killer's balance state that every choice can feel like the wrong choice sometimes, but if you're choosing to play the killer, these are the choices you're going to have to make. She's very unforgiving of mistakes in that way, where it's like, you have to take your opportunity when you can get them, and your margin for error is very low when you're playing a killer who has this many like weaknesses and points of failure. It's not exactly a very encouraging thing to say, but unfortunately it's the truth.
I mean, someone's got to be at the lowest on the list, you know?
Yeah, and Behavior seemed to be really keen on making sure it was her.
Sorry not to laugh at that, but there are like obviously going to be things that people don't understand about every killer, of course. Like that's just inherently how it's going to go. I even want to bring up one that you just brought up that I didn't get, but it's like, it's not just a trap playstyle. It's not just a laser tagging playstyle. It's always going to be a little bit of A, a little bit of B, right? Like that's just how the killer design works.
Yeah, you have to do both.
As far as misconceptions about the killer goes, like this is going to be a little bit of a loaded question, but like if you were to tell anyone like just the misconceptions about the killer that you wish people just understood, like if there's a common grievance about them that has obvious counterplay that isn't being used or anything like that, like just what would be the advice for that?
Let me just get the 200-page book of things players should know about this killer. Give me a second.
No, I literally like because I do the same questions all the time, and
yeah,
I was looking at my like list of questions. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be fucking crazy for Pixel.
This is gonna be a big one. Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest thing I see people do wrong is they don't stand still, because like on one hand, people are used to crouch counterplay because Vecna has it, because ranged killers often have it. Like crouching can help you against that power. But with Merchant, it's often more useful to you for a split second stand still, because you don't have to go through the animation standing back up again. You can just start running again. And standing still and crouching and fast vaulting after the nerf makes you immune to being scanned by a drone. So any of these things, if you need to not get a lock on stack and you think she's not going to M1 you for it, then you can just pause. You can just take a split second to stand still, split second to crouch, and you'll avoid that beam, like with complete consistency. This means also if a merchant is trying to 2-tap you, like she's trying to run up behind you but isn't M1ing you, you're at 2 lock-on stacks, so she wants to try and laser tag you. That's something that I do a lot. Like I'll walk up right behind somebody who's I know has 2 lock-on stacks but they're healthy. I put the drone up right next to them, and if they don't dodge to the side or stand still, the drone comes back down, scans them, instantly injures them. I'm already there to basically attack and get the 2-tap. Like, both health states in a split second. That is completely avoidable if you just do the epic move where you stand still, or where you just crouch. The drone cannot see you there. There is nothing she can do. It is, I think, every merchant clip I get that feels great, there's a little voice in my brain that goes, yeah, if the survivor just knew to not let this happen to them, there's nothing I could have done to prevent it. And that's just the nature of playing a killer like this, is you are preying on survivor mistakes. But survivors make a lot of mistakes, so, you know, it all works out in the end half the time.
It's also just kind of inherently how clips work. It's like, well, if they outplayed me, then it wouldn't be a clip. So...
True. The other thing I think is, this is more on the macro play side. If merchants leaving drones on generators, I do this sometimes. I will do this, not because I think it's effective, because it's very easy to avoid being scanned if a drone's on a generator. You just do the gen and ignore it. You can see the beam, so if she comes for you, you can just avoid the beam very easily. The thing people do that is a mistake a lot is disarming a drone that's on a generator, because by disarming the drone, she can see that you've disarmed it, meaning that she will know that you've taken it down, and she will know that somebody is there. So, like, you put a drone on a high priority generator and you ignore it, she has to guess at any given time whether the survivor on the generator is actually on the generator and ignoring the drone, or isn't there. But if you take it down, as soon as you do that, she knows that you've done it, and will come right back over to check on that gen. That is the only tool she has for gen defense in the year of our Lord 2025, and that's a mistake I see even, like, when I did the 3-gen showcase for Super Ralph, I saw, like, comp players doing this, taking drones down when they shouldn't be, because the beam is very easy to avoid, and often giving her the information that you are there is more important to the killer than actually having the active drone, because the drone is not very good. That's a mistake I see a lot. Also, resetting at 2 lock-on stacks, don't do that unless you're really confident you can avoid the third one, because what I'll do sometimes, if somebody I know is at 2 lock-on stacks, I track it in my brain because you can't see it on the UI. I track them and I go, okay, this person's been scanned twice. I know they're at 2 stacks, the third one will injure them, but they're already injured, so they force an M1 or something. I'll just leave them because I have something better to do. I'll go and pressure a different gen, I'll go and chase a different survivor and leave them at 2 stacks injured, meaning they waste the time or the med kit or whatever to reset themselves, but they are basically injured again whenever I want them to be. The next chase, I can get an injury on them immediately. So if you're at 2 lock-on stacks and you're injured, don't heal. Find the nearest drone if you have to, get yourself deep wounded and claw trapped, remove the deep wound, and then just do a gen somewhere you can see the killer coming, and then heal later, because you'll be at 0 lock-on stacks and completely safe. Merchant's counterplay is not one big thing. It's not just like, hey, just dodge the chainsaw, just dodge the hatchet. No, it's lots of little things that require you to, on some level, understand what the kid's capable of. And that is the stone wall people hit when they come to this killer. They don't know what she does. So, well, once you know, it's the easiest thing in the world. Yeah, that's ultimate. I think is all the people always have with her is just not knowing what she does, or like not understanding what options what she does can give you, because it's way more options than people give her credit for than people really understand.
And just as far as like what she can do, like there's obviously a lot of stuff, you know, there's like drones, there's info, there's map presence, there's trapping areas, there's a lot of stuff for Skull Merchant, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of little things, none of which are good.
Regardless of them not being very good, I do want to ask what your favorite part about them is, because obviously PixelBush, Skull Merchant, like same thing at this point, like, you know, it's like peanut butter and jelly. So like, what is your favorite part about them if you had to pick like one thing?
I like that she is the only case we have in DPD so far of a trap killer whose kind of the effectiveness of her power is not just did they step in it or not. Like Hag and Trapper, they're quite binary in that respect. Did they step in a Trapper trap? Great, they're basically a down. If not, nothing happens. Hag is kind of similar. Did they step in the Hag trap and you're available to teleport to them? Awesome. If not, sucks to suck. But Merchant, there's more play there. Like the difference between a good merchant and a bad merchant is night and day, because like she's manipulating the beams, she's tracking your lock-on stack, she's pulling the radar out in chase to see where in the tile you're positioned, so she can like mind game you without having to look anywhere near where you are, because you can't see her, she's behind a wall. It is that sense of active engagement with your own traps, and that's what I appreciate about the killer more than anything else. Like no one else does it like her. Your traps are not just things that do stuff, you're using them. You're manipulating the beam, you're manipulating the environment. And that's something that no other killer gets to do in the way that she does it. That is what makes her special to me, a sense of control.
And her drones are used to control the environment and the maps and the trial and, you know, the kills that you get. I do want to ask what your favorite map is and what your least favorite is and just like why, I guess, because, you know, I've definitely had some matches against Skull Merchants where I feel like I'm having a harder time as a survivor. I'm sure that's also a thing that you experience when you get certain maps where you feel like you're having a better time.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The way I've always liked to categorize Merchant's good maps is that They have to have good tile visibility, but bad linear visibility. So like good tile visibility meaning that in a tile, there's not many LOS breakers. So like a drone can see over stuff. You put a drone in a tile and it can cover a wide area of the tile. There's not much a survivor can do to hide from a beam. But then linear visibility is like how far you can see the killer coming when they're coming towards you. Basically how pre-runnable a map is. And Merchant thrives when tile visibility is good, but linear visibility is bad.
So like Hawkins.
Hawkins, I was going to say Hawkins is a perfect example. Hawkins, I think, is one of her best maps. Hawkins and Dead Dog Saloon. Those are the two that I am happiest playing. Dead Dog was like my favorite by a mile because you used to be able to put a drone on top of the table in the middle of main building and cover the entire thing with a drone that was impossible to disarm. But Behavior removed it because they decided they hate me personally. Many such cases. Like indoor maps, not Midwich, because Midwich has got good visibility and you can pre-run her for days. Like the other indoor maps, great for her. Dead Dog is great for her. That's about it. She's not a very good killer. But the worst maps I find are like the bigger maps with big stuff in them. And I think the perfect example of that is Gas Heaven. I see an auto haven key in my lobbies and I can hear like a vein in the side of my head because that auto haven key is not an auto haven key, it's a Gas Heaven key. I always get sodding Gas Heaven because that map, all the like the car crusher tile thingies, the ones made of stacked up cars, those are way too tall for a drone to see through. You can't use your power at all there. All the crushed car tiles on Gas Heaven, you cannot see anything through them. The main building is a labyrinth that your drones can't navigate. It's gigantic. The map is often super stacked. It's auto haven, so you can see her coming from a zip code away and start pre-running. The stealth doesn't matter. The more like Hawkins or Dead Dog a map is, the more Merchant likes it. The more a map is like Gas Heaven, the less she likes it.
So it's loop specific stuff and if you can see her coming, basically, because she has the built-in stealth.
Yeah, it's like if you can see her and if the drones can see you. That really is it. It does help a lot of maps. They have main buildings, especially main buildings, that have little quirks, have little holes in places you wouldn't normally expect, or shacks that are built in a certain way to let you do something a little bit cheeky. And those maps I do enjoy playing on, and those can vary wildly. For example, Swamp. Swamp still has the old shack. For those of you who weren't around back in the day, old shacks have loads of holes in them, and Swamp Shack is one of those old shacks. So there's holes everywhere, and drone beams only need to see 25 centimeters of a survivor to scan them. 25 centimeters, that's the smallest increment of anything in Dead by Daylight. So you can like scan people through the tiniest little cracks, which means any maps that have like these often older structures with loads of holes in them. So both Pale Rose maps, you know, there's a lot of stairs in the game that have like, they're not a stairwell, they're like a ramp with steps.
Yeah.
The drone beam can see through those individual steps. So if you're like putting a drone up a flight of stairs about halfway up, it can shine through and light up a survivor behind the stairs, or vice versa. A drone behind the stairs can light up a survivor climbing them. So that means that maps like Pale Rose, because obviously Pale Rose has all the steps that go up and down in the main boat. Those steps you can see through. Mm-hmm. Shelter Woods, the ramps that go up to Adriana's little cabin, you can see through those. Groaning Storehouse, you know, the little square glass windows at the front. Those, the drone beam can see through those. Like there's lots of maps that have lots of little spots like this that you can do some quite cheeky stuff on. But if I was to be talking about all of those, you'd be here for an hour. But yeah, it really can vary.
Yeah.
Hawkins Dead Dog, yes. Gas Heaven and Gas Heaven adjacent maps, no. That's kind of it.
You just gave me a couple of good examples of like maps that you dislike, but I do want to ask a little bit real quick, just like about the killer itself, what you dislike about them, because obviously there's a lot you like, and what are like the main things you dislike about her that would be like, if they didn't have the good, this would probably be grounds for stopping playing said killer?
Well, the big one is that she's crap. She's not very good. Yeah, she's never been the best killer. She was probably at her strongest in the 3-gen era, but since then, in her reworked state, what I call Merchant 2.0, when she had 2 beams that you couldn't see, those beams, that put her, I'd say, at about maybe low B to high C tier, but now she is pretty unquestionably the worst killer in the game. The only one I'd say who was worse than her at any point was like Freddy. Like when she first got nerfed, Freddy was still worse than her, and then Freddy got a rework that literally made him looking from the bottom of D to the middle of B, just leaving her and Trapper in the trenches together. Her power has been so intentionally defanged in so many ways, and that's looking like it's going to be this way for quite some time. It breaks my heart when I see people who are asking me like, oh, how do I play Skull Merchant these days? Because ignoring my like attachment to the killer, the correct answer is you probably don't, and you wait for the rework, because Behavior have made it clear they don't want you to play her. But beyond that, the biggest issue I've had with the killer, aside from that, it's an issue I've had since the rework, is the reliance on hindrance and haste. They, like, the whole process of applying a claw trap is really, really cool. I've always liked that. I've always been a fan of that mechanic. Like, manipulating a drone beam, getting a remote injury that tracks you and breaks you, like, that's all. It makes your gameplay feel very consequential because it's like, oh, you've made 3 mistakes. You've been scanned 3 times. So you have an injury, yes, but you've also got been tracked, you've been broken. It feels like you're putting a lot in to get a lot out. But once you've got the claw trap on them, you just become like an anemic clown. And that feels very tacked on, you know, like they couldn't make the drones down you, but they also like they wanted to give us something other than just the injury. So they're like, sure, let's just slam hinder and haste on and see if it works. It creates, I think, feels very binary. Like either they're hindered enough that they just die, or they are hindered little enough that they can pre-drop and your power doesn't do anything. Like it's very much, there's no real skill to it other than applying the hinder at the right time, which it feels very cheap. And it's one of the reasons you feel so bad to play against for a lot of people, because the hinder is something that you'll inevitably get hit down by at some point if the chase is decently long. And it's been a real problem for balancing her because it's been almost impossible to make the hinder both impactful enough to make her like not dog shit, but also feel decent to go against. That's been a line that behavior has consistently failed to toe, which is why I'm so glad that one thing that seems to be keeping with the rework that's coming up to her is the EMP dart mechanic to replace the hinder and the haste. That is the kind of thing I've been pushing for since the rework, and we're finally getting it when the rework comes at some point in the mists of time. Yeah, that's the biggest biting point, other than her strength is the hinder and the haste, but glad to see that that is going.
Say, hypothetically, I don't know what you would change about the killer. I'm sure, I know you've made a video on it. I know it exists, but like...
Yes, I've made several.
If you just had full executive control, pretty big if, I understand.
Yeah.
But if you had full executive control over the Skull Merchant and you just got to do what you think would be best for the character, what would you change about her?
Okay. Bare minimum I would do is scrap the hinder and the haste. That's the first thing I would do. Scrap it, replace it with the EMP dart system from the second design preview. For those who don't know what that was, that's like a survivor who was claw trapped is now vulnerable to, it kind of feels like almost like an unknown style, like AoE shot that downs you if you're claw trapped. It's an alternative way to get a health state on somebody who's already claw trapped. That was a super elegant system that Behavior devised. It's like the one good thing they've done with the killer since the rework. I'd like to see that come to her current kit. They could just ship that right now and it would make the killer like meaningfully better without changing anything else. But there's a lot of other things they could do. I would like to see the undetectable changed, because right now it's like 2 seconds of undetectable when you deploy a drone, which is just pathetic. I would rather have it be tied to recalling a drone that's currently active in the environment, because then it becomes more like you get it when you want it rather than just when you deploy a drone. It's more intentional, but it also means that if a survivor wants to discourage you from, like, to take away undetectable, they just start disabling drones. That would mean that there's more disabled drones than that, meaning that if you recall one, you don't get the stealth. It's more interactive for everybody. And that means you could also reduce her cooldown while you're at it, like her drone deployment cooldown, because it's as long as Blight's rushes, which is insane. There's a whole other system that I came up with for use in a video, which was like talking about how to integrate the idea of moving drones into her existing kit, where you send the drones out to trap up an area remotely. But that was very long and complicated. The long and short of it is, what I'd like to see is a return to the system where she had stealth mode. If you're not aware, stealth mode is when she had 2 beams, but those beams were invisible until a survivor walked into them for the first time, and then you could see them. I'd like to see that system come back, but with 1 beam that doesn't rotate. So you put the drone down, the beam comes up, but the beam doesn't start rotating until somebody walks into it. That means it becomes a tool of absolute precision. Like, it becomes a laser tag that monitors an area like a tripwire. You can hit them directly with the beam and that will turn the drone spinning, or you set it up as a tripwire and the survivor walks into it. Either way, once it scans them, then it starts spinning around and it has the 1 beam that you can see. It would discourage just throwing a drone into a tile brainlessly because the beam wouldn't move, so there's less of a threat immediately to the survivor, but it means you've got precision, it means you've got control, it means you've got a good trapping tool. That is just something I've been advocating for a long time, the idea of 1 invisible beam, like a tripwire, that then starts spinning once it's set off. And then beyond that, you could give her numbers buffs, you could give her basic ultrasonic speaker to reduce the scanline immunity, you could give her basic prototype rotors to increase the rotation speed. You could remove fast vault immunity because that was a really dumb nerf that she never needed. Like, there is so much you can do to a killer as open-ended as Merchant while keeping what makes her interesting and fun. And that's why I've been so militant on the design previews, because the design previews tried to erase what made her interesting when they didn't need to. You can get rid of the worst parts of Merchant's kit and keep the stuff that makes her interesting and expand upon it. And that's what I've always been advocating for. It's what I've always wanted. There is more, but it would require like diagrams kilograms. I've made a video on it for a reason, because it required me to like wander around outside with a sheet of paper and like my cameras and stuff. It was a complete like I've made something more comprehensive called the Neapolitan, which was meant to be a combination of Merchant's original version, her current version, and the versions in the design preview. But that required a lot more explanation, and it would require the notes sheet in front of me. So
Oh no, and then I can just like wave my hand and then put something on screen that says, hey, check out this video right here.
absolutely. Yeah, so absolute basics, just to kind of sum it all up. Undetectable shifted from deploying a drone to recalling one. One beam stealth mode doesn't rotate until you walk into it, so it becomes a reliable tripwire tool. Replace the hinder and the haste with the EMP dart, and then numbers buffs from that, and like numbers tuning. That is, I think, what I would do. It would keep her fun for the people who enjoy her, while giving her a bit more room to interact with everything, like more skill expression, while keeping the stuff she's currently got. Like, it feels like a win-win way to go forward with the killer.
It's like a Freddy upgrade rather than like a trickster.
Absolutely a Freddy style upgrade.
Gotcha. But as far as updates have gone, not ones that have happened, but I feel like I'm stepping on a landmine every question I ask, but how have updates to Skull Merchant treated her? Would you say that any of her changes, buffs, and nerfs have been fair?
They've treated her about as well as a speeding train treats a small child on the tracks. It's been rough. There is an argument to be made that Merchant is the most nerfed killer in Dead by Daylight history, all courtesy of a single update. And that is an insane thing to say, but it might be true. Oh, it's a bold statement, but hear me out.
Hearing you out.
In patch 8.3.0, she received 8 mostly uncompensated nerfs, and one of them removed literally half her power. She went down from 2 beams to 1. She got her movement speed while deploying a drone reduced. They got her movement speed while looking at the radar reduced. She got her beams cut in half. She got her hinder reduced. She got her haste nerfed. She got fastball immunity added. She got... there was a couple more, but I've forgotten what they are off the top of my head. That just shows how many there were. One of them did get wound back. She got some minor compensation. But this... I described it before, and I'll say it again. It was an intentional attempt to overkill her, because obviously back in the day, after her rework, people hated her. People complained about her. She got a sky high kill rate for a number of reasons. Like, she was too easy to play at the baseline level. Players giving up against her. They didn't understand what she did. So Behavior decided the correct outcome was to nuke her off the face of the planet. I didn't silence the complaints. It just changed them. The complaints are now no longer this killer is annoying me. It's now my killer is unplayable. They nuked her and didn't really try any way of like buffing her back up again. That's been the wild part to me, that this was done 9 months ago, 10 months ago now, and nothing has been done to try and fix the situation. All we know is the rework, because let's be clear, this was done because they knew a rework was coming for her. They were going to rework the killer, but in the meantime, I want to silence the complaints by just giving you no reason to play her, by just ripping her in half. But the rework is taking longer than expected because their original idea for it was terrible. Yeah, that's where the problem has arisen. It's like, on one hand, the nerfs are backbreaking. Some of them made sense, like going down to 1 beam to increase her skill expression. That was fine. But when you realize how long the rework took and is still taking, like the original intention from Mandy talk is only after I asked her, actually. She said, the rework is going to be coming. We're shooting for the later half 2025, which would have been about a year after the great nerfing happened in October.
Hey, wait. It is the later half of 2025.
Thank you for noticing that. And I'm sure you as have noticed, what is conspicuously absent from any roadmaps or mentions from Behavior is the Merchant rework. In a recent AMA, when they were asked about it, they said the rework's been delayed and they're shooting for early 2026, but there's no guarantee that they'll make it even for then. So this idea of the nerfs being a short-term solution to the problem, it is not looking very short-term anymore. So yeah, if this idea of like a short-term gutting was ever going to work, it's not a short-term gutting anymore. If she's not reworked by October, which they've said that she won't be, she'll have been dog shit for longer than she was a decent killer. She released in March. She got reworked in October, stayed reworked for a year, and then got gutted. She'll have been Merchant 3.0, i.e. for as long as she was reworked. She's been 6 months Merchant 1.0, 6 months Merchant 2.0, and now 10 months as basically a dead killer. In October, she will have been a dead killer for as long as she was Merchant 2.0. And if she makes it to the mid-chapter in March without the rework coming, she will have been dog shit longer than she's been anything else. That is not sustainable. That is not okay. If they're not going to fix her quickly, which that's what they can't do, they need to buff her desperately, because other killers have gone through multiple rounds of buffs in that time. Chucky has been buffed 3 times since Merchant's nerfing. 3 times. The whole, we're waiting for the rework is not acceptable anymore because it's taken too long. We got to the stage now where it's not reasonable to keep a killer intentionally this bad for this long. Obviously, the reason for this is because their original design previews got rejected by the community because they were terrible. That doesn't help the situation right now. It's not fair to keep a killer in this state for this long out of an intentional desire to gut the killer, which is what that was. So there is a reasonable argument to be made that she's been the most nerfed a killer has ever been.
I would say that's fair.
Maybe Nurse losing her M1s and her range add-ons and her extra blinks may be in the conversation, but we're comparing Nurse, the strongest killer this game has ever seen, to a killer who peaked at the top of like C tier or low B tier. It is wildly out of proportion what was done to her. The nerfs alone would be one thing, but it's been the refusal to buff her back up a little bit in a safe way, because there's lots of ways you could safely buff her, like in the meantime. Is this refusal to touch her while other killers are getting constant tuning? That's been what's so dismaying. It makes you feel so ignored and so defeated, especially when the rework keeps getting delayed. But, you know, we keep on. We keep on.
We keep on. Well, how about this? How about on a little bit of a lighter note, just because it's been a little intense?
Just a little bit. Yeah.
You know, this is an asymmetrical game. There are 2 roles in this game. You might have heard about this.
Yes, I have noticed.
So when you play Survivor, that I assume you do,
yes,
any of the ones in a Blue Moon that you run into a Skull Merchant, do you enjoy those games?
Yes, I do. Always have. I like watching what she can do, you know, because it's not often you see a merchant, especially not these days, but it's especially rare to see one who knows what the hell they're doing. And even when Merchant was like a somewhat decent killer, playing her at a baseline level, like just shitting her into a tile hoping it would get you the down, didn't work if the survivor knew how your killer worked. And odds are I played more matches of Skull Merchant than the person I'm playing against. Like once you know like how she works and know what you can get away with and what you can't, and know like how she plays and how you can exploit that, like, oh, she's not rotating her drones properly, like to get lock-on stacks. So if I just pause for a split second, I can completely ignore the drone she's placed. Or if I can get this fast vault off, I can easily avoid the scan. Like, or going, oh, she's trying to do the old 3-gen thing, putting drones in generators. Hey, that's cute, I'll just ignore them. Once you know this killer, the only way it could feel bad is because, you know, you're bullying a shit killer, you know, like, because if the merchant's survivors know what she's capable of and know how to play around what she can do, she will get cooked. And I enjoy seeing how the merchant player rises to that challenge and tries to make it work, because that's what I try and do. I like seeing if they try and do something clever or something technical, because it makes me happy to see people trying to express skill with killers like this. And I kind of appreciate the valiant spirit of keeping going with a killer when the community and the devs have basically told you not to play her. I treat seeing her like an event, you know? I like to see what they're capable of.
And like, obviously, since you are the merchant player, when you were in games like that, how frequently do you really run into like other, you know, fans of the Skull Merchant? You know, not just someone like doing a daily, even though dailies don't exist anymore, like, or just like, you know, I just want to try a Skull Merchant, I want to get her adept, whatever. But how frequently do you run into people that are like fans like you are?
I wouldn't say particularly frequently, especially not these days.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like back in the day, I used to see them on a semi-regular basis, and often they knew who I was. Like I get a message in the post game or something, or even like a Twitter like notification from the person after the match. But these days, it's not so often, unfortunately. Like I think I've only ever seen one other P100 merchant in the wild.
In my community, at least. I have at least 3.
Like, ironically, I've seen one, like, hardcore merchant fan who ended up in my lobby, but unfortunately they were playing Vecna. Nowadays, she's not a killer you see every day. And even, I think the most I ever saw her was, weirdly enough, around the time of my first Skull Merchant guide. The one that came out March 2024. Yeah, March 2024 is when I did my first Grandmaster's Guide to Skull Merchant. That's when I saw the most of her. I'd see someone with Dissolution on, and I'm like, I know what you've been watching. Or I see someone with like a quad hex through the hunt build, and I'm like, yeah, seems familiar. But now merchants are endangered species. They've been hunted to extinction, and yeah, it sucks. It's always fun when I do, and when I play how I often get recognized. So people will see it's like a merchant who's like actually playing decently, and they just go, I've seen streamers who are like, oh, this is PixelBush, isn't it? So they're playing on EU, and it's a Skull Merchant, and he hasn't lost yet. And then get to the end, it's like, oh yeah, it was him. So that's always a kind of a funny feeling when I get recognized, just because I'm playing the killer that nobody else plays, and not getting 4-outed as often. But yeah,
yes.
Unfortunately, we're a bit of a dying breed, and that was, I believe, by intention, by design from behavior, unfortunately.
Yeah, I kind of have a similar story where it's like, I think it's Albie who, this is an insane thing to say, but like, he knew it was me on Nemesis based on my ping. Like I watch back VODs, you know, because I like if I clip someone, I want to go get the clip, you know. I watch back VODs.
Yeah,
I think it's fun, but like
absolutely.
I load into this lobby. I turn someone blue within like 20 seconds of the game. Sorry, you know, average nemesis behavior.
Yeah.
He presses escape. He looks at the ping, sees it's like 3640. He's like, oh, it's horceror. I'm like, because I don't know, like that. I'm not like a close pal with this guy, but that was like legitimately like such a fucking ego boost for me. It's just like, holy shit, like, you know, oh my god, he knows who I am. But like it was really cool. It's really nice being recognized.
It's like on the odd occasion when I swift on NA, which happens more than you think. I see a Wesker, I see the trans flag on their hook, I check their ping, oh, it's Scooty. And you're laughing because you knew what I was going to say. But yeah, it happens. It is always fun when you run into people that you know, and you're like, yeah, I can smell you.
I can smell you.
I can smell the Ouroboros across the map.
That's fucking crazy. But when you're running into players like that are good at their killers, people that play against it, I'm not saying that merchant is obviously going to be like the most in this regard, but for people nowadays, what would you say is like the most frustrating part about playing against merchant, if there are any left? Like not for you specifically, but just for the average Joe Schmo.
I think a lot of people still don't really get. They know what she does on paper. They might not really internalize and think like, oh, what are the consequences of this gameplay? Like if I'm at 2 stacks, like she has lots of little things you need to pay attention to. People can often feel punished for like things they couldn't reasonably, like a drone getting rotated back into you the split second you get vulnerable again, how disarming a drone can actually be a downside for you. Or like even when you can get tracked and how long you're being tracked for. Like a lot of people don't realize that once you get scanned by a drone, you're seen on the radar for 12 seconds, meaning that if you face check a drone and then you hide, you're not hiding, you're just standing still and you know exactly where you are. Like people just face checking drones when they shouldn't, not realizing the consequences that can have until it's too late. I think that is something that you see a lot, is people like just not respecting a beam, and because they don't play against her very often, they don't get a chance to practice the counterplay.
Yeah, just hit a little, what's a stupid people like gonna do to me? And then they're broken.
then they get broken out of nowhere. You see it an awful lot from players who are like trying to blind you in front of a drone and then get injured halfway through, so it cancels the blind because they're like they do the little recoil or whatever, or they fail the drone hacking interaction at 2 stacks and get injured. Like a lot of unforced errors that are caused by people who just don't play against the killer enough, or who don't understand what the visual effects on their screen, the things on their HUD, and the killer holding her little radar out actually mean, because they don't play against her enough and the information isn't clear enough. That's always been the issue, I think, is that it's very rarely been clear to the survivors what's actually going on beyond like how many lock-on stacks you're at. I've always thought a great example of this is on the PTB, like a very launch PTB, there was a little eye symbol over your head that showed when you were being like tracked. That could come back. Let that be like whenever she's looking at the radar or whenever you are trackable on the radar. So that would be when you're claw tracked off 12 seconds after you get scanned by a drone. Have that little icon come up to let the survivor know that at any time she can pick up the radar and take a look at you. That would be a really intuitive way of giving her a bit more visual feedback on the survivor without making her weaker, just to make it more clear what is going on.
I think a lot of killers do also have that issue of no visual feedback. Like even my main nemesis is a huge one, because like I drag the whip and it looks like shit from start. Like there's no hitbox.
Because you're like M2ing a wall and then they get then they get hit. Okay.
Yeah, and then I drag it like 3 feet further. There's nothing there except like my hand out, and I'm like hit survivor with mine. Yeah. You know, like there's no tentacle.
Absolutely, and it doesn't help also that she has a load of audio effects that don't get used, that were in her original version, but are not in her reworked version, even though she is missing a lot of audio cues. Like when you rotate a drone, when you change the direction, there's no audio to let you know it's happened. There's no like, there's no beep, there's no little whir sound, there's no audio clue whatsoever to show that that's what's happened to you.
So I'm not crazy. Didn't it used to do that? Like going, wee.
She had a full suite of sounds when she was first released, but it never had an audio cue before.
Okay.
But there's loads of sounds that her drones made in the first version that you could just staple onto the rotation mechanic. But because it got added between PTB and live, they never thought to add that polish. So it just never got done. The sound of getting scanned on the radar doesn't play consistently. Sometimes like it'll play, sometimes it won't. Usually if it's like if the survivor isn't scanned and then becomes like visible, then it'll play. But if you've been scanned a second time while already visible the first time, there isn't usually another sound that gets made. Like on the survivor side, there's not a lot of clue that you've been lock-on stacked at all. There's like your body flashes up red a little bit and your stance changes a touch, but that's something you could easily miss. There's no sound for that. Like she just needs a lot more visual and audio feedback, honestly, for both sides. It's gotten better now that you can see the beam through the wall if you are the skull merchant with the radar up. It's gotten better that way, so you can see more clearly with the drones rotating in the right direction. But for the most part, yeah, it's not great. She could definitely do with more visual feedback, and that would make going against her more intuitive without actually changing how powerful she is.
And some of these things can kind of go along the lines of like being, bugged, of course. Are any of these bugs, or are they just inherently like things that were removed? And just in general, what bugs does the Skull Merchant have?
Well, right now, and get this, she might be one of the least buggy killers in the game.
Hell yeah.
For a while, after the Great Nerfing, she was absurdly badly bugged because the laser tag orientation wasn't facing properly. So like you couldn't laser tag anymore because your beams did not deploy where they were supposed to. And about a quarter of your drone beams didn't rotate once you placed them. So you'd have to walk under the drone and reset it to have it start spinning, which meant that your setup was gimped and your ability to play tiles was awful. That was a bug for about 3 or 4 months, but they fixed that because I kicked up a massive stink about it. And I may have also showcased an exploit in my guide that got fixed. So they fixed it at the same time. It was called Compass Tech. A few friends of mine discovered it.
Was it Rev?
No, Rev showcased it on his stream. It was Vindruva and Leechy who discovered it.
Okay, I'm not familiar, but
it was like survivors facing in the southwest quadrant of a drone beam could be scanned by the beam, regardless of the beam's positioning, if you rotated it at the right time. It was really strange. Like it was a result of situations for years that behavior and the players never understood. But as soon as they found that I put it in my guide, they patched it out within 2 weeks. And when I kicked up a stink about it, I was like, I'm putting this in the guide, knowing it'll probably get patched out. But if this means they go back and try and bug fix this killer and can fix her other bugs, that is an acceptable loss. I'll take losing Compass Tech in exchange for having her bugs fixed. And that we actually got.
And now she's essentially bug fixed.
She still has a couple of bugs. Like when a drone gets disarmed, sometimes it flies down rather than up. So you end up with the drone stuck in the floor. But when it's armed, it pulls itself back out of the ground again.
I've actually seen that within like the last week.
It just looks a little bit goofy.
It's just, it's like burying itself because it's scared.
But yeah, she's broadly functional right now. Well, I say functional. She works the way behavior intends her to. That is not the same thing. Yeah, she's not particularly buggy at the moment beyond, like, even the audio stuff, that's not bugged. That's just sloppiness because they didn't add audio cues for features that they put in between the PTB and the live release. She's definitely not particularly buggy, but she's also not what I would call functional because all the malfunction in her kit is entirely by design.
Not great, but it's not like unintended.
Yeah, she's more playable than she's been in quite a while because of the bug fixes.
Gotcha. I don't have a great segue to go into this one, but I do kind of just kind of want to talk about it because, it's fucking PixelBush. Like, this is your area of expertise, so... You enjoy the killer's playstyle. You have fun.
Yes.
What about the lore?
Oh, baby. Yeah, that...
Just let the dog off the leash real quick. There you go.
Absolutely. That's all you need to say. Merchant's lore has received a lot of blowback from a lot of people that I think is in part tied into her visual design as well. She's not what you'd normally think a killer in this game would look like. And especially because a lot of people wanted like a robot or a sci-fi killer that they got eventually with Singularity. But like Merchant fits perfectly in this kind of box similar to something like Hostel of a rich asshole doing whatever the fuck they want and getting away with it because they're rich. That is a tried and true horror kind of trope / subcategory that's made movies that I absolutely adore.
Any examples?
Hostel, Would You Rather? I'd say there's The Most Dangerous Game, which is obvious. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of these like 2000s exploitation type films that they're quite edgy, they're quite grim, and they also fit contemporarily with her because she is a killer from the modern day. So those are the kinds of things that she would have grown up with. Like she's playing a character after one of her father's like stories. So it makes sense. The 2000s were a time where these kind of edgy anti-hero characters and like darker than life stories like Seven were getting told. So I very much see her as a product of her time in that respect. Like she looks like an edgy OC because the character she's built herself around was
an edgy OC.
Absolutely, they were from that time. It dates her in quite a charming fashion, I think. I also like the implication that she's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like her father was traumatized. Like he was a troubled a troubled storyteller, a troubled mangaka, and he had these visions, these dreams of violence and bloodshed that inspired the Soñadores Sombríos manga that he wrote. And it's implied that the reason that he left the Imai household is because in those dreams, he saw what Adriana would become. He saw the Skull Merchant as she is today in the fog, because that's established part of DBD lore that troubled creatives can have visions of the fog. Michaela has them too. And that's the reason that he left. But in leaving, that's what caused it, because it resulted in her daddy issues that resulted in her projecting onto his characters. Like, it's wonderful self-fulfilling prophecy enabled by the entity, and I really, really like that. It's very much not explicit in her lore, which is, I think, what I like about it. If it was more explicit, I think it'd be kind of boring. But it gives her story some layers, especially when she got her tome, and you got to look more at the massive ego that she has. That, like, entitlement, that competitive desire to be the best and to show everyone that she's the best. Like, I have so much love for characters like that, where they're like, yeah, they're massive egotists, but can also kind of, on some level, back it up. She's obviously very skilled, she's obviously very intelligent, but not as smart as she thinks she is. I have so much love for a character like that. She's very human, while she's human without being in any way sympathetic. And I think that's a balance that DBD sometimes struggles with. Its characters tend to veer between, its killers especially, veer between like these sympathetic, like Kami no Mora did nothing wrong, or like clown and doctor torturing you just for shits and giggles. And Merchant, she has these traits that are obviously human. She has her ego, she has her competitiveness, she has her like daddy issues, but none of them in any way make her sympathetic. They just let you understand how she got to become the person she is today. And I love that. I absolutely love it. Visually, she's based on films from an era that I love, that like 2000s torture porn, like so grounded it goes back round to being like edgy as a stylistic choice kind of movies, again, like Hostel. It all just sort of comes together in a way that I can massively appreciate. And yes, her base design has got some problems, but that's what her cosmetics are for, and dear God, are those cosmetics good.
That's great, actually. How do you feel about the killer's cosmetic options? What are your favorites? What do you wear? Do they have enough? Not enough? And is there a specific option you would have made if you had complete executive control of that?
Absolutely. Well, she got a lot in her first year. Like, I think gave a big, like, every year they do a big look back on how many skins everyone got. And Merchant, in the year she came out, was like the second most catered to killer in the game, behind only Huntress, I think. She got so much in her first year, but has gotten very little since. Like, I think in 2024, she got only one more object, not outfit, like object than Twins got, to give a sense of like how little she got last year. She got like 2 2/3 pieces because she got like a mask and a weapon. She went from very much being the favorite of the skin designers to rapidly becoming an unfavorite. I think I might know why. I think it might be because the person who originally designed her and designed a lot of her skins is no longer working at the company. I think she was the pet of a particular visual designer or character artist who's since been laid off. And since then, she's kind of been left behind. Fortunately, the skins that she does have tend to be very, very good. The only one that I'm not a big fan of is the launch one that she got, you know, the one with the boob window and like one ass cheek hanging out. I think it's a bit tacky, and not in the kind of fun, tacky way that some of her skins are. My skins of choice, she's got a lot of good, her fits are very mix and matchable. Like, no, I think almost every outfit has at least 2 good pieces that often go better with other bits than they do like default. Like, one thing you'll always see, regardless of whatever else I'm using, is the buzzsaw, the one from the, I can't remember what it's called, never mind, I don't remember why I said that, but yeah, it's the buzzsaw, because she has unique weapon wipes for it where she like reloads the blade back into her wrist, and that's really sweet. I'd like to see more skins that double down on that industrial style, because it's like, it's a heavy piece of kit, you know, like it's bulky, it's brutal, it's very industrial, and yet none of her fits really look industrial. They're all like nice dresses or like fancy gala outfits. Like, there's nothing to play up the tech side of this tech CEO, you know? So I would like to see her have something a bit more industrial, something a bit more grungy that feels like it would fit the same vibe as that buzzsaw. Maybe like if the intention is to make her look more science fiction, I'd like to see her in like maybe some like sci-fi armor or something, or like give her a big coat, something that makes her like, because a lot of her skins, they're very much like revealing, shall we say? I wouldn't go so far as to say that she's like particularly sexualized, but like she's definitely kind of more feminine, quote unquote, than a lot of the other female killers. More conventionally attractive is probably the correct way of putting this. But I would like more skins that feel more industrial and that maybe try and double down more on the manufactured side of what makes her interesting. Don't be afraid of actually trying to make her look intimidating. I think there's definitely plenty of room for that. When I did my original design for the Classic competition, I decided to go for like a leather jacket and hazard stripes and a big helmet and make like a bit heavier and a bit bulkier. And I would like to see more skins in that kind of style, which would make her look a bit more industrial.
All right, so an industrial skin would be the way to go as the PixelBush approved skin.
Yes.
You know, I would say that the Skull Merchant, the drones, they are quite industrious, one might say.
Yes.
So with all the, tech that is required to make a drone out of a skull, and the things that you add on to it, such as motors and wires and little worry bits so they can actually fly, how do you feel about her add-ons and their balance, their overtuned, undertuned, and just in general, what do you like running on the Skull Merchant?
It's a kind of interesting question because Merchant feels like a kind of killer who might actually be decent if she had like 7 add-ons base kit. Like no matter how many add-ons you run, you always feel like you're missing something. The core 3, I think, are ultrasonic speaker, vital targeting processor, and prototype rotor. Ultrasonic speaker, I talked about this one earlier. It reduces your scanline immunity window from 2.5 seconds to 2.25 seconds, which sounds like not a lot, but it really is. She has vital targeting processor, which is a rare add-on, where it increases the hinder you get from being scanned while claw trapped from 8% to 10%. And the other one is prototype rotor, which increases the rotation speed of a drone by 10%. And that's a very rare add-on. So those 3 feel like staples. I almost always run some combination of those because I always feel like I'm missing out on something if I'm not. But even then I feel like I'm missing out on the other one. Like, oh, I have good beam control because I have ultrasonic and prototype, so I can manipulate my beams more easily. But now my hinder doesn't do anything. Also, I'll put the hinder on and I'll take off prototype rotor. Awesome, I can actually use them consistently in tiles to get the hinder off on you now. But my rotation speed is really slow. Also, I'll take off ultrasonic speaker and put on prototype rotor. But now my scanline immunity window is longer and I can't double scan as easily. So it's like you feel like you need 3 add-on slots to be able to play the killer at a baseline level. And that is unfortunately just as a result of the fact that she's a bit dog shit. It was them nerfing her hinder and then not buffing her rotation speed enough that caused this, I think. So it really is that 3 add-ons are ultrasonic, prototype, and vital targeting processor. In terms of her other add-ons, there's some solid choices. You've got brown noise generator, which gives you oblivious to anybody who's been claw trapped, which is honestly pretty handy. Both her Iris have their uses. I particularly like the rework to expired batteries. That means that everyone spawns with a claw trap on them, so you can see where everybody is at the start of the match, and increases the life of claw trap batteries beyond that, which is, I think, pretty cool. Pairs well with the oblivious add-on because it means they're oblivious at the start of the game, which is pretty handy. You've got randomized strobes is a trap. It increased the duration of your hinder by a second, but if you run the numbers, it's just worse than the lower rarity add-on that also buffs the hinder. Unless you're going to go double hinder, which is certainly a choice. Wouldn't recommend it because you're losing out then on prototype and ultrasonic. The lower rarity hinder add-on is better than the higher rarity one just by the pure numbers of it. She's got the 3 add-ons that you feel like you need to run. A bunch of decent ones, like the one that reduces the amount of time that you take to reactivate the drone. Supercharge is all right. The one that means you have increased break speed when deploying a drone, which is, I believe, geographical readout. That's actually not too bad. It gives you like a perk slot and an unslot, which is not too shabby at all. That's never a thing to turn your nose up at, even though it's worse than a lot of the other add-ons that do a similar thing. Like if you were to compare it to Unknown's game cartridge or to Howmoss's gunpowder tin, it's just not as good. But that's just a merchant special for you. She does have a couple of complete clangers, those being the skill check add-ons and low power mode, which might be the worst add-on in the entire game. Because low power mode means that your drones can't rotate, but they can still see the beam. They're not at all. They just stay completely still, which would be all right if they couldn't see the beams. But they can. So it becomes incredibly easy to avoid because you just see the giant orange beam in front of you that isn't going anywhere and you go, okay, I'll crouch walk for a split second or just go around it and there's nothing they can do about it. Like it had some use as a gimmick when you were 2 beams and when they were invisible, but when they're visible, it's just a detriment. It's not worth the add-on slot. The only time you don't ever run it is for something I've called like Burger Queen Merchant. Which is where, obviously, Burger King Myers, where you run 2 add-ons that work against each other and you just get a really shit killer. Merchant can have that too. If you run Prototype Rotor, which increases your rotation speed by 10%, and low power mode, it means drones rotate, but at 10% their normal speed. 9.5 degrees per second.
Hey, that's pretty good. I don't know.
It is I think, the worst add-on pair in the entire game. Your power is so comically useless. Like, if you're getting claw trapped in a game where a Skull Merchant is running that add-on pair, you need to play some bot matches for a while until you're ready to play Survivor again, because something's clearly gone very badly wrong. Like Merchant's add-ons, it's hard to evaluate how good her add-ons are because she is so reliant on her 3 good ones that it becomes almost hard just to running anything else because she's so bad that you take whatever you can get. Like, you don't have the room to run subpar add-ons on a killer who's as bad as her, unfortunately. Especially because they're not like high rarity either, like a rare and a common and not hard to like get lots of. So it does kind of suck that her add-on diversity is bad, but it's only because the killer is bad. When she was a bit better, there's more flexibility in terms of what you could run. So I guess we watch this space. If in doubt, just run ultrasonic and VTP and you'll do fine.
And now for the other half of things, what about perks? What would you run for perks on the Skull Merchant? And do you think there's anything that she runs as a killer better than anybody else?
There is one perk that they actually did give Merchant one buff, one little buff about, I'm going to say 3 months ago. It was Kaneki's release. It was Kaneki's release because they changed all the tear radiuses. When they gave, like, on the same patch that they gave, like, Billy and Blight a 40 meter TR, they gave Merchant a 24 meter terror radius, which means with monitoring abuse, her terror radius becomes 16 meters, which is the same as a tier 2 Maya's. I've always joked since then that, like, running monitor is better than her actual power because being 16 meters means that pre-running doesn't really happen when you're playing monitor merchant. Like 16 meter TR is smaller than you think. It catches people off guard a lot, especially because it means your stealth kicks in quicker. Like you're actually untouchable from deploying a drone. Yeah, monitor is great on her. If you have room to put it on a merchant build, definitely do it. My normal build these days is like either 3 slowdowns and monitor. So like with the slowdowns I tend to run being corrupt, eruption, oppression, and monitor. Or I go for a 4 hex build. I go like designed purely to waste a survivor's time. And that is Thrill of the Hunt, Blood Favor, Ruin, and Pentimento. Just waste some, like make totems take ages, make 2 totems that they have to get rid of because Blood Favor Merchant's actually pretty scary because she can claw trap you and then immediately follow up. If you can't leave the tile, she'll just kill you. But yeah, there's definitely some perks. Dissolution was one I ran for a while, but I found it got less value once players got better against the killer, especially because you're deploying drones a lot, meaning you're going to take deploy a lot, meaning the terror radius requirement on dissolution is pretty prohibitive, especially because she got a small one as well. I think coup de grace is pretty solid on her as well if you want a chase perk, because when combined with the base kit haste that she gets from scanning a survivor, like with a drone you just rotate, you can actually get a pretty decent hit off of coup, especially if you can hinder them at the same time. Coup can be pretty scary. I ran that for a long time, but yeah, she's a killer where I just run a lot of slowdown because she's not very good. So it's like I'd say 3 slowdowns and monitor, or maybe go 2 slowdowns and monitor coup, or like monitor bamboozle and 2 slowdowns because bamboozle's just great on any M1 killer. But other than that, I like to go for the like ultra mega super hex build, which because it's a really good time waster and because people get off of gens to turn drones off all the time, and that's great for you because it means the room will eat their progress. And Blood Favor works well with her in general. You can use your drones to lock down areas near your totems so that people get scanned or disable the drones near the totems to warn you that they're being done. It has its uses.
And just while we're talking about useful perks, just real quick, I'm not sure that she needs one, but if there was one perk for survivors that was going to counter the Skull Merchant, what would it be? Urban
Evasion. It means you can crouch the drones in chase without losing any real distance. Like Urban against this killer. When we tested it on the PTB first with my friend Shaders, he ended up dodging the beams like almost Mission Impossible style by crouching at the right time, and he thought he made the chase really like a lot of fun. Even back in 2 beam era, Urban was great, and in 1 beam era, Urban is still great. Like it lets you just crouch a beam without losing much distance. It's really handy.
And then they have to actually like bring it back if they even want to try to hit you.
Yeah, like that's something I'll do a lot is like if I see a survivor is trying to crouch a beam at a distance, I'll let it go past them and then swing it back, because as soon as the beam goes past them, they see that as like the all clear to start running. But if you can dull back on them immediately, it can catch somebody out who really isn't going to see it coming.
No, I have the same thing. It's like if I'm holding my tentacle out and then they duck it and then I don't instantly throw it, they start running, and then that's when you hit them with it.
Yes.
Exactly. All right, cool. And you did kind of briefly talk about like learning macro knowledge and all that, like way back at this point.
Yes.
But I do want to ask you do you think maining Skull Merchant specifically has given you any transferable gameplay skills to other killers at all?
I would say so. Mostly in terms of the macro stuff. Like, she is a killer who doesn't give you macro information for free like she used to. Like, Merchant 1.0 was defined by the fact that she gave you information for free, like loads of it. That was her entire strength. But new Merchant give you free information. She benefits well off of having existing good game sense and macro. And that's what makes her a macro killer to me. It is the fact that she is such a powerful, like, she's a force multiplier for game sense and information that you already have. Or like some reasonable assumptions that you can make and then play off of and like take educated guesses and things like that. And maintaining that awareness is useful in any killer. Like, playing Merchant effectively requires knowing how survivors path in and out of tiles. That's a skill that other trap killers can use well. It's a skill that other ranged killers can use well. Also, when you learn precision laser tagging through objects, like through little tiny gaps, those are little gaps that Huntress and Slinger can use. Maybe not to Huntress because she throws like televisions at you. But definitely Slinger and Trickster and Plague can use them in some cases, sorry. Ghostface can stalk through some of them, Myers can stalk through some of them. So a lot of the stuff that like, there's a reason that when I labbed Merchant for an hour in customs, I did so with a Huntress player because he was like telling me, oh, try this place, oh, try this place, try this place, try this place. And it's like, it was surprising how much of her skill set transferred well from ranged killers because it's all like this very precise aiming of this tiny little beam, this tiny little, effectively a projectile.
And if anything, she can get them in more slots because you said the beam was like the tiniest projectile of the game, right?
Yeah, it only needs to get 25 centimeters of you to be able to scan you. So it can, like Slinger can't shoot through gaps between steps most of the time. Merchant can. Like, that's a level of precision that not even the ranged killers can do. So it's like, it's why she's so marvelous to me, because she's a killer who is both, she's got skill expression from trap killers and from like the highest mechanical precision killers in the game, like the ranged killers like Deathslinger. Like, no other killer can exist at both ends of the spectrum at once. A killer who rewards insane mechanical precision through like tiny increments of failure aiming alongside macro play and being a trap killer. No other killer gets to do both. Only her.
So it's like her unique thing.
Absolutely. Like what you can transfer depends on what you get out of her. If you play her focusing more on the trap killer stuff, obviously the other trap killers will help there by talking to, and they'll learn a lot from talking to you, players of other trap killers. But also if you play her, if you're focusing more on laser tagging and beam manipulation at the middle range, then ranged killers are going to be people who are like going to be a bit more up your alley.
All right, cool. And this one doesn't have as well of a segue, I apologize, but how have updates to the game of Dead by Daylight itself actually treated the Skull Merchant? Like, I specifically want to bring this up in relation to stuff like S.T.A.R.S, you know, S.T.A.R.S you can hit through that other killers can't. So like new maps, new perks, new changes to things that aren't the Skull Merchant specifically. How has she kept up in that regard?
Okay, well, one thing to know is that Ormond Lake Mine is a paradise. Ormond Lake Mine is great because it's got so much verticality, and verticality is Merchant's best friend. If you put a drone halfway up a flight of stairs and you angle it right, it can be scanning the top of the stairs and the bottom of the stairs at the same time, effectively covering 2 floors at once. So like any map with lots of verticality is going to be great for her, and Ormond Lake Mine, great for that. Ormond Lake Mine has shit tons of it. Hawkins coming back from Stranger Things jail. When Merchant released, we still didn't have the rights to Stranger Things back. Getting Hawkins back, that was huge for her. Maps being made smaller in general with maps like Dead Sands, that's good. There haven't really been any like, oh god, maps since Merchant came out that have been like big for her. The fact that Swamp hasn't been reworked yet, so it still has the old shack is good for her. The only negative changes I can really see for maps is like when they remove certain spots, like the Dead Dog table drone. You know, you put a drone on the Dead Dog table and it can scan the whole building. They removed that. That sucks. And they removed it seemingly just for her. Nobody else could use that. So it was just a change that was made specifically as a middle finger to her. Playing her when Kaneki just came out, it was rough because people were already made for this, and she does deep wound you base kit. So it was like made for this, kind of makes your power buff the survivor rather than actually do anything useful. So when Kaneki was around, like Merchant suffered a lot as a side effect from that. But beyond that, she's also just an M1 killer. So like a lot of the stuff that has screwed M1 killers over lately, like Duty of Care and Shoulder the Burden, haven't been great for her. But she does have a couple of benefits against some of the very new stuff. Like, we're in a healing meta right now, but she has base kit broken. So you have that knowledge of like, and she can injure you fairly freely if you're at 2 lock-on stacks and you're injured. I talked about that earlier. So her ability to get injuries decently quickly does help. But the biggest thing that I would say is like a reason to play her now rather than before is Fog Vials. Fog Vials screw a lot of killers over pretty significantly. Spirit has a horrible time, so does Knight, so does Dracula. Like any killer's reliant on hearing you rather than seeing you, eat shit to Fog Vials. A lot of ranged killers have problems with Fog Vials because they struggle to aim. Merchant, she is hands down the killer who cares the least about Fog Vials, because if someone's scanned, you just pull out your radar and you can track them through the fog. They can't see you, but you can see them. So it's like, oh, what's this? You're trying to hide from me. No, I know exactly where you are. You've got your Asbury bracelet on. I'm coming for you. Like, Fog Vials against Merchant, unless you're sure there's no drones anywhere near you, will do precisely nothing. She could even see the beam of her drones with her radar out, so that you can't even hide that from her. Like, her close range information collection is really good. So it's very difficult to like lose her with a Fog Vial in a way that a lot of killers can. So that's actually a really good reason to play her right now. People running Fog Vials, if anything, they're going to benefit you because it means the survivor can't see where they're going, and I struggle more to see your drone. Genuinely, fog vials into merchant is so like, it's so one-sided for the merchant, it's almost funny.
I love humor and fun.
Yeah.
Now, with the introduction of fog vials being a pretty big one, and of course the most recent patch, the Walking Dead patch, if you're unfamiliar or watching this in the future, it was bad. It was really, really bad. Like probably the worst patch we've had in like years at this point, and that's saying something. It's actually really relevant to the Skull Merchant thing, because Skull Merchant caused such a shitstorm that I genuinely think has been eclipsed by the Walking Dead patch.
Yeah.
But in general, with how long it's been going and Dead by Daylight and putting out patches like this, and just like overall kind of what's been going on recently, even because it's relevant right now when this is being made on August 12th, 2025. How long do you think Dead by Daylight is going to last?
I think it's got a good amount of time left in it. And that might sound like a weird thing to say after yesterday's events, but I think DBD has got several potential points of failure, but I reckon they know about them, and whatever kills DBD, it won't be quick. Meaning there's a lot of opportunities for behavior to right the course. Let's be honest here, DBD is in a rough spot now, but it's been through worse. I still think the Darkness Among Us release in 2018 was the worst release in DBD history. If any release was going to kill the game by itself, it would have been that one. This is when the game was much smaller, much more vulnerable to failure. Life balance was just like a twinkle in Matthew Cote's eye, like it didn't actually happen. If anything was going to kill the game, it was Legion. Release Legion with release Ormond? Nope, absolutely not. So if this game will die, it will die to a death of 1,000 cuts, and that process inherently will take a while, which means that behavior has time to correct course. And they've done it before. We've had really bad patches. We had the Resident Evil anniversary where console players just couldn't play. We had the Twins release into the Tricksters release where like Twins were just a pile of bugs in a killer power, and kind of still are. We had the Trickster patch where pallet stuns didn't work for 2 months. We have been through some really rough times. And especially if you're like a newer player who maybe came in the past year or so, or 2 years, you might not be too familiar with that because you've just come from an era where broadly the DBD has generally functioned pretty decently. But we've come back from worse. I think if something's going to kill DBD, it will not be related to like bugs, because that is something that is within behavior's power to fix. Like it's the kind of thing that would take long enough for behavior to have had to make a lot of unforced errors for it to get bad enough for the game to die. What has a higher chance of killing the game is being unable to keep paying licensing fees and losing license chapter like they lost Pinhead. That is something we need to worry about. But that's something that I think financially that's not going to happen for a very long time, given that like FNAF and Tokyo Ghoul both made enough money to buy a small Eastern European country.
But yeah, that's actually kind of a really interesting response, because obviously the general sentiment has been kind of negative, but I do like that your point of view on things is rather than like there's not just going to be one thing that kills it, you know, like it's got to be fuck up after fuck up after fuck up, and like and right now we're only at the first fuck up, you know, because let's think about this. Walking Dead only came out 2 weeks ago. How insane is that Walking Dead only came out 2 weeks ago, and the chapter immediately before was one of the best received ever made, the FNAF chapter. People love that chapter. It's insane. People act like this downfall's been going on for ages. It really hasn't been. Like, people have been glazing behavior for the past year. I should know. I'm one of the few that wasn't. I was getting shit for it every week. Like, this is what's so insane to me, that the news and the community travels so fast now that it's only been 2 weeks since Walking Dead dropped, and it feels like the game has completely been upended by it. And it's like, maybe if this discussion's still being had in 6 months, or even 3 months, that's something to be genuinely scared of. But this is just another bump in the road. And maybe this is me in my position where I've been now, where I have, for the most of the past year, been pretty disappointed in the stuff we've been getting because it doesn't appeal to me. Like, FNAF doesn't appeal to me, Tokyo Ghoul didn't appeal to me, Castlevania didn't really appeal to me either. The lore of this game has been slowly drying up, the thing I really care about. Merchant has been left for dead. Like, so much of this game has been disappointing me for the past year that The Walking Dead being a shit show is just kind of normal to me. I'm not fazed because this is normal. The best I can think of is, oh, now everyone's getting upset. It might sound kind of insane, but my expectations are already so low that this is just another step. And yet I'm still here because I'm confident behavior can do better, because they have turned it around before from worse situations. So I think, if you ask me, it sucks. It really sucks what's happening right now, especially on the back of so many like acclaimed releases. But
Also, I think people need to get some perspective, I think. And it feels kind of harsh to say that. And it's not to try and absolve behavior of their fuck-ups, of which there have been many fuck-ups. But I think get some perspective. It's only been a couple of weeks. Things can turn around, and I seriously hope that they do. It's within their capacity to change.
It's actually a really fun segue for a turnaround, but my final question, I'm sure if you've seen any of these before, you already know what's coming. What would make you drop the Skull Merchant completely? Because you have been with her through thick and thin at this point. Like, you weren't even there at her absolute highest, which, community sentimentality, she was at her lowest, but regardless.
Yeah, her strongest.
What would make you drop her forever for good? Like, stop playing her, just goodbye, Adriana.
I can't say for certain, but I can give a pretty good guess. I had a vision of this when the first design preview dropped. I don't know if you guys were too aware of the design previews, but the first design preview basically just turned her into a dash killer. It was your power skill expression was ramming your drones into survivors to get a health state, and that was it. That's all it was. And I can't say for certain that it would have stopped me playing her, because at the end of the day, it was kind of in the style of Twins, which is a killer I do have a lot of love for. But at the same time, it's just not what I signed up for. I got into this killer because I saw a trap killer with versatility and a level of depth that no one really expected, expressed in a way that no other killer can. And as long as I can still do that, I will stick with it. I will stick with this killer like a barnacle on the side of a ship. But if the day comes where she's just if she ends up feeling generic, if the effort that I have put in to learn this killer's ins and outs feel like it has been wasted, and there's nothing interesting to replace it, like the first design preview that was just crashing into survivors, it was so pedestrian and so much like everything else we get these days. If I feel like the time I have spent learning this killer and teaching other people about this killer has been wasted, that will kill my interest in this killer and might kill my interest in this game, because I have quite an acquired taste with the killers that I enjoy. I have quite an acquired taste with what I value about this game in general. And yeah, if people enjoy the different things, that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to hate you for liking what you like, but don't mess with the few things I really adore in this game. I want to be able to keep playing my favorite killer. And if she isn't my favorite killer anymore, that's what will do it. If they make her unrecognizable such that the skill expression that I learned, the techniques that I picked up, the techniques that I in some cases invented, if they stop being relevant to this character, that will be enough. That will do it. But so far that hasn't happened yet. We're lucky that she is unique among shit killers in that she actually has all the cool stuff that she can still do despite being bad. That's what's maintained my interest so far. I play less than I used to, but I haven't stopped. And it's why the design preview scared me, because it looked like it was going to close the door on what made this killer special to me. But the fact they walked it back, the fact that they seem to be taking another run at it with the idea of her being an actual trap killer, it fills me with enough hope to want to keep going and want to keep rooting for this killer, because again, I am confident behavior can do better. I'm confident they can finally do her right, even if it means I have to drag them by the collar and haul them over to my way of thinking. I don't have a choice. I have to keep trying, because if not, I'll lose my favorite killer forever. I just can't stop. I'm looking forward to when I can. I'm looking forward to when I don't have to worry about my favorite killer not existing in a year's time because they've reworked her into Wesker number 17. It's why I'm so loud. It's why I'm going off here right now, because I love this killer so much, and I just want her to keep being the killer I love so much.
Yeah, losing identity it sucks. It sucks a lot. But I do want to say thank you for all your time that you've given me today, and my line of questioning about the Skull Merchant. Now this solo section is just if you want to talk about anything you have upcoming, and I know your release schedule, so if you have anything
of course,
but if you have anything you want to talk about, any links you want to drop, anything you're excited about, time is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got I plan my content pretty heavily in advance. One thing I'm working on more interested in the Potential and Problem series, which is where I explore IPs from outside Dead by Daylight that aren't in Dead by Daylight, like other horror IPs and licenses and stuff, and talk about what they can offer to the game. I'm hoping to do one on the Toxic Avenger when the reboot for that comes out at the end of the month. So when that film comes out, expect my video on that not long after. I'm also hoping to do a great big video where I try to fan cast the Dead by Daylight movie, where I look through a bunch of like Scream Queens and like Hollywood horror big names and see if they could fit in with some of DBD's characters. Now, you can very much tell when you watch my channel that I'm a big horror nut. Half my videos are just me trying to trick DBD players into watching videos that are barely related to DBD because I just want to talk about a horror movie or a game or something instead. We're also about to get a bunch of new lore. So the new chapter's coming out probably in a few weeks, and that will come with, they've said that lore's coming back as well. Don't know what that's going to entail. So my long-term schedule depends entirely on what that's going to be, but at least when the new original Killer and Survivor drops later in the month or early next month, there'll be a video breaking down that lore and a bit of the cultural context behind it and everything. So there's plenty coming up, but exactly what it is will depend on what behavior comes out with in the next few weeks.
All right, cool. Well, again, thank you very much for coming on and talking with me about the Skull Merchant.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I just want to say thank you to everyone here who's been listening and supporting me. Go check out PixelBush on everything he may have. Thank you for being here, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, morning, noon, evening, or night, whatever it might be. And I hope to catch you in the next one. So thank you for being here, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.